This is Pops at the Genius Desk. Since obviously I talk too long on some subjects and other subjects you think I talk too long on, but you got OCD, so, oh, no, it's not it's attention. ADD, sorry, I'll get it right yet. In some cases, OCD fits that as well. Sometimes I feel like living proof. Anyway, I come on here to give an idea of compression tests and cylinder leak down tests, why you would do them or why you might not need to do them or there's no sense in doing them. The main point I'm going to make here is that's pretty simple. On a diesel engine, it's simpler than ever. Turn your fuel off, disconnect your solenoid, pull a fuse or take the throttle or the shutoff cable and put it to the off position. On Alice Chalmers, that's in, and everybody else, that's out. And make sure you're in the off position, fuel off. Crank the engine over and listen to it. If you hear a consistent, smooth spin, but it sounds faster than normal, you know you have a compression problem, and usually at that point it's pistons. If you hear where it has a whee or a high spot in there, or wee-dee-dee-dee, as I like to say, then you find that you know you have a bad cylinder and or possibly bad valve. Well, you already know what you need to do. A leak down test isn't going to tell you anything more than you already know. Pull the valve cover, check your tappet clearances, and if they're all either in spec or slightly wide, and I don't mean major wide, but wide enough but close enough they can still open the valve at cranking speed, you can have quite a gap. As long as that valve pops open, the cylinder's going to fire. So if you're looking for a problem there, if you're looking for blow-by problems and you know it's blow-by, well, that's pretty evident. The only time you get into minor blow-by problems is when your valve guides wear on a turbocharged engine. That's right, because then you get it from both the exhaust and the intake side, because both are pressurized. The turbo side is pressurized, the turbine, exhaust, pressurized to turn the turbine wheel. So that side will go up. And whatever you're putting in over here, say it's 15 pounds of boost, you probably have 20 driving over here. So you have pressure backing up into the valve guides into the engine. So then the interesting thing is it from the pistons or from the valve guides? When it's major, you pull your valve cover cap and crank the engine over and start to run it. And when you start seeing puffing, and especially smoke puffing, you already know you have a cylinder down with the pistons bad. A piston bad, rings broke, sleeve bad, whatever. So now you're into that ballpark. Why would you waste your time doing a compression test or a leak down? You have an engine that's been rusted. Why in the world would you go ahead and do that? Well, one main reason is you haven't gotten into the engine yet. And the cylinder leak down test can give you an idea of which cylinder is actually leaking if you want to get that far. If the engine's locked up, you're an idiot. Just tear it down, okay? You're going to have to get into it. If you have a stuck valve, you're going to have to tear it down to some extent, at least pull the valve cover, and possibly you may even have to get into the engine itself internally, pulling the head off to get the valve to free up. But if you can get it without that, putting some stuff on it, PB blaster or whatever you happen to like, drum and stuff, tap it and get it moving. You know, what was the stuff that Zepp had? They had some pretty good stuff too. A couple of different types that work well. WD-40, doesn't work well enough. They actually have a penetrant version of a WD product. So put those in there, loosen your valves up. The cylinder leak down test on a gas engine can tell you go through and figure out which cylinder is unless you've pulled the valve cover off. Other than that, it's not going to tell you a whole lot. Even a rusty engine, it's not going to tell you a whole lot, except you have a leak. Well, if you've cranked it over and you can't start it and you hear the whistling noise, you already know. And if you know you're going to go that far, pull the manifolds off, crank it over and look. There's a lot of ways that things can be done without your fancy tools. They're nice, and if you have an engine that's running but not running well, that's a great tool to have, a cylinder leak down test, because it's been a running engine. You're not looking at something locked up. Cylinder leak down is great to give you an idea, if done properly, as close to top dead center and locked up as you can, and put the pressure in there and listen for where it's leaking from, or just know that it is leaking too much. But now you have to figure out from where. And a compression test, that gives you a rough idea, 20-some seconds. And the idea with a compression test that you don't know is that quite often rings and ringlands can break, still seal enough at cranking speed that you'll have a bunch of cylinders in the diesel that are 500 psi and one that's 495. That's probably the one. But they can vary by that much anyway, so is it the one? You could have 450, 475, 500. Ah, there we go. You can have all of that, and the one cylinder might be moderate throughout that until it's running and pressure hits the rings and causes things to flex. So then you're looking at blow by, and you have to be careful. So we're just passing 5 minutes of 5 minutes and 20 some seconds. I'll be off before 6, at least I'll do that. But think about that before you start buying all these fancy tools and working with them. When you use your eyes and ears and sometimes even your nose and temperature touching when you're working on things, that you can come up with a lot of stuff that is intelligent, that is scientific, okay, that you can write down and note without ever having any equipment there. Why won't my engine start? Well, start going through the procedures. Fuel, air, compression. Categorize them, write them down. May save you $1,000 or more. Oh, sure, you're going to buy the tools later. Are you kidding? I know that. But you'll know why you're using them now. See ya.